chances come in the form of former world champions Miles Stewart and Chris McCormack, and last year's winner Greg Bennett. McCormack has had a perfect build-up and was just out-sprinted by Stewart for the Australian title a fortnight ago. The one problem for the world number 5 is his aversion to the Sydney course. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for the Sydney sider. Stewart also has his problems. A severe case of tonsillitis has seen him bedridden in the lead-up to today's race. It would be a surprise to see Stewart on the podium. Greg Bennett loves this course. The world number 4 proved with his win here last year that the Sydney course suits his aggressive style of racing.
I don't believe there is a race that I could ever say has been as important as this one. But that's not to say I'm not treating it as just another race. If I approach it any differently, I'm bound to have problems. So I've just got to go in and be as relaxed as possible for it.
A strong field of internationals will hope to upset Australia's stranglehold on the Sydney race. Watch for Kiwi world number 2 Hamish Carter, who scored a stunning win here 3 years ago. Watch also for British hope Andrew Johns. He took the overall World Cup title last year and he'll lead the European charge. And finally, of all today's starters, it's perhaps Chris McCormack who has the most to race for.
The trial is in April. Mum passed away in April. It'll be almost a year to the day that Mum passed away at the trials. I'm going to be standing on that starting line knowing I've done everything I possibly can to make sure that I make that Olympic team.
Yeah, plenty to race for today for Chris McCormack, who has in his mind the passing of his mother. There's the start list. Hamish Carter leads the way. He is the number 1 ranked athlete in this race. The French have a strong team here, so do the Americans, and a big field as we look at Hunter Kemper from the USA. Plenty to race for them, just as in the women. The first American across the line can confirm their spot in the team. And Tony DeBoom, Joe Eufanor also number 65 and 66 there. Plenty to race for. There's Chris McCormack. Greg Welsh, you know him perhaps better than anyone else in this field, and he has so much to look forward to in this race.
Yes, that's right. The passing of his mother last year, I think that's going through his mind. It was 1 year ago that he actually stepped aside from this course. Jan Rahula coming down onto the starting pontoon, but there's the man, Craig Walton, who should lead the swim.
Well, he's certainly one of the best swimmers. The Professor, Chris Hill, an underrated Australian performer, and he is certainly looking forward to a good race today. Rito Hug from Switzerland, well, he'd be buoyed by the performance of Messmer and also McMahon earlier this morning as they go down onto the pontoon, not too far away from a start here in the men's event at the Energy Australia Triathlon 2000. They wait for the starter's gun. 72 athletes, and they are away racing for the Australians, a spot in the Australian Olympic team, also the Americans, all of them racing for the crown of World Cup champion in Sydney. Wonderful scene. The pontoons start working absolutely perfectly.
Yes, that's right. They're all locked in battle here. It'll be a tense battle of focus champions today in this ultimate endurance test of triathlon. Let's look for the early swim leader, Craig Walton. I don't think you can go past looking at him.
Well, Greg Bennett, one of the athletes in the washing machine, let's hear his thoughts on his strategy in the swim.
Going to be full on the whole way. I know all the guys can swim the first 200 extremely fast. It's a matter of having a very strong 200 to 500, and that means just, you know, relaxing and really trying to pick it up between the 2 and the 500 and try and get that little gap. Once you've got that gap, it's a matter of just settling into the rhythm in the group of guys that are around you, not panicking if you're behind, and if you're in the front, just enjoy it.
Well, enjoy it indeed if you are in front, but I'm not sure there's too many athletes there that would be enjoying this at the moment, although we are seeing the usual scene at a triathlon, Welshie, is that the pack is bunched, there's a lot of arms and legs, there's a lot of problems. We're not seeing that on this new Sydney start.
Yes, that's right. They've been able to go down there on the Friday and select their positions in world ranking order. Hamish Carter went down there and chose his spot, and I believe that he started on the left side of the pontoon. Greg Bennett also started on that side, as did Chris Hill and Chris McCormack.
Closest to screen, number 5, you can just see the 5 on the swim cap, is Jan Rahula from the Czech Republic, and you can see we've got 4 packs here. A bigger field than the women's race field, but a marvellous scene. The Sydney Opera House in the foreground, the Harbour Bridge in the background, and Hamish Carter, the Kiwi, is up there at the moment. So is Craig Walton, and also Laurent Jonsom from France. Chris Hill is there also. So number 8, just there, Chris Hill, the Professor. Number 1 is Hamish Carter. number 24 is Jean Somme. So the leaders, as we would have expected in the men's race, are up there. Walton certainly the fastest swimmer in this field.
Yes, that's right, but it looks like Hamish Carter, he's just trying to get up there and challenge for the lead right now. I don't think that Hamish would actually like to lead the whole course around, but he's establishing himself in the first 200 to 300 metres of this race, and they're out to a very, very fast start.
Well, Craig Walton, the Tasmanian, he certainly understands the importance of the swim. He is not bad on the bike, and he's okay on the run, but certainly it is his swim that is the key to the race for the Tasmanian.
It's very important to get a good lead at the start. It's very hard now. Ben Sanson isn't racing, so I suppose I'm going to be the one that's going to set the pace in the swim, which I don't mind too much, but you know, it's probably one of the most important things for me, to have a really good swim and go as hard as I can basically from start to finish in the swim.
Craig Walton certainly understanding his place in the triathlon world, and it's going to plan for him so far. He leads, big pack of triathletes behind him, and Greg Bennett and also Chris McCormack in there somewhere. There is Craig Walton on the top of screen, and the Frenchman Laurent Jean Somme there also. Greg, we've just had news that Miles Stewart has withdrawn from the race, so the tonsillitis affecting him.
Yes, it must have been a little tough on Miles actually to get out there, and a lot of pressure on Miles, I do believe, with the situation that is currently in hand. But as we look at the main pack here, I tell you what, I've been in the middle there a couple of times. I've had a couple of headbutts, a couple of kicks in the face, and actually a couple of hands on the shoulder even.
Yeah, there's been some controversy about that sort of thing, particularly with the wetsuit, because the zipper is at the back, and well, it's controversial to suggest, but sometimes, well, the hands are going where they're not supposed to be.
Yes, the zipper's come down mysteriously, but we won't talk about that today.
Well, you can see the scene here as they get towards that 500-metre turning buoy, just the one lap of the swim here, 1,500 metres, and you can see Craig Walton has stretched them out, the Australian, and he'll be trying to get the biggest gap that he can, because he knows that his bike is not too bad, but when it comes to the run, it's certainly not the strongest leg. He's lost his swim cap now, so the water doesn't look too choppy here, but I guess it's a lot easier from where we are than down there in the water.
Yes, his swim cap's obviously come off after the rough start. He lost his goggles there, and the swim cap came back off the high part of his head. So just a little bit too much water underneath the cap would have forced it to come off.
How much of an effect would that have, not having the goggles in particular? Salt water here, of course, in Farm Cove, and not too comfortable for them.
Yes, that's right. He may come from a surf life-saving background. Craig did down in Tasmania. He's had a lot of experience in the surf, so I don't think it'll be a problem. For some people, they have bifocals or prescripted swim goggles there, so that may be a problem for them, but for Craig, I don't think it'll be a problem at all. He's a swim champion.
Well, certainly the water will be a lot warmer here than it would be back at home in Tasmania. Good shot here of the lead that Craig Walton is trying to get here. And as we go back into the pack, 72 triathletes, and important that they maintain their contact with the lead bunch. And you can see it again there that the gap is starting to grow, which is exactly what Craig Walton will want. Chris Hill, the Australian, is not too far away. Hamish Carter, the #1 ranked athlete in this race, he's ranked #2 in the world, is there. And we understand that Greg Bennett and also Chris McCormack are in the middle of this pack, so they're not too badly placed at the moment. There's Walton and Jean Somme and Hill, who are going well at the moment in this swim. Pretty calm here as they get further to the sea wall at Farm Cove. Not bad swimming conditions at the moment.
Oh, perfect swimming conditions here. It's a lot calmer than what I've seen in the past. But let's talk a little bit about Courtney Atkinson. He's the World Junior Champion, which gave him a wild card to start in this race, but he also qualified too. He had a great race at the national titles 2 weeks ago. Peter Robertson's going to be a little bit back in the swim, but to see him come through on the run.
Well, they're well placed, both Atkinson and McCormack at the moment. Robertson back a little bit. Let's take a break. Craig Walton, the Australian, leading 2000.
Monday Night Football, when Victoria was the corner of Aussie rules, on the fields where football legends...
Welcome back to Sydney Harbour and the Energy Australia Triathlon 2000. It is still Craig Walton, the Australian, who leads from the Frenchman, Laurent Jean Somme, we are getting towards the concluding stages of the 1500 metre swim. You can see that the lead that Walton has is probably not as large as he would like, but he is still in front. You can just see Greg there, he's pokes his head up just to make sure that he is lining up for the exit ramp at the beginning of the transition.
Yeah, takes a little look over his left shoulder to see what sort of company he's dragging along there. We've certainly got Chris Hill in there. Looks like Ben Bright from New Zealand, the ex-Australia turned Kiwi. He's also in the pack. He's a great swimmer, and I tell you what, he can do some damage on the bike too.
Yeah, Hamish Carter there, big bunch of Kiwis. In fact, Brent Foster, I think, is there, the other New Zealander, as well as Shane Reed, Snuffy they call him. I think he might be there as well. We're just trying to get word of where Greg Bennett and also Chris McCormack are, and we think that they're in that group there, which is a pretty large pack of athletes. Peter Robertson is towards the back of the field. Courtney Atkinson, who is one of Greg Welsh's fancies, no doubt about that. He is in that chase pack also. As Walton comes down now towards the exit ramp, he'll run up into the Opera House forecourt, strip off the wetsuit and head up Macquarie Street. Jean Somme right on the heels. He's been there since the start of this swim leg. He has not moved, the Frenchman. Happy to stay behind Craig Walton. There's the pack that are chasing. Again, the thoughts as you exit the swim. Anything going through the mind in particular as these athletes race towards the transition?
Yes, right now they just want to get out of there and get their goggles and swim cap off, as Craig Walton doesn't have, so he's got an advantage on the rest of the field, hasn't he? But he's going to get his wetsuit down nice and quick, concentrate on getting that helmet on nice and fast and up the hill.
There's Hamish Carter, the Kiwi who has won this race previously, and Craig Walton searches for his bike in that transition area, and he will strip off that wetsuit and hop onto the bike as quickly as he can. Not too many in this lead pack. In fact, it's just the 5 of them. Walton is there. There's Chris Hill, the professor, the Australian, who's had a great swim. Brent Foster, the New Zealander, is there. There's Craig Walton. He exits transition number 24. That is Jean Somme, the Frenchman. Walton, magnificent transition onto the bike, just trying to find the foot. At the moment, they don't put their feet immediately into the pedals. They just rest them on top and try and get going as they push up the hill.
What you'll see here is the athletes just do exactly what you said, Dave. Put their feet on top of the pedals, on top of the shoes actually, on top of the pedals. Then they get up the hill. I've seen people as far as College Avenue up the top there before they put their feet in the shoes.
Big group there, the second pack. Peter Older is in there, Stefan Bignet from France, Ricky Jorgensen from Denmark. As we go back to those that are coming out, Andrew Johns, who is the athlete from Great Britain, who is ranked number 3 in the world at the moment, so you can expect to see him figuring in the finish. Have a look at this pack. The job for these guys will be to try, if they can, to bridge that gap to the leaders.
A huge pack, and all the not so good swimmers that are in this pack, the more so the bikers and the runners, and they're going to have a hell of a job in front of them to get right up to that swim group up off the front.
Particularly trying to stay out of trouble too, I would imagine would be pretty important for them. Let's check the results now of the swim. Craig Walton was in front, not much between Jean Somme, Hill and Foster. Carter there, not much between them at all. Reed, Jorgensen 22 seconds back. The Australians Atkinson, Bennett, McCormack, Robbo, Peter Robertson 1:34 behind. Greg Bennett, he thinks the first part of this bike is the key for him.
In this course particular, we've got a hill straight out transition, and it's a matter of your arms are so lactated from the swim, and yet you've got to hit this hill as fast as you can. And last year we managed to get 7 of us away on that first part of the hill. It wasn't at the end of the swim, but it was on that actual start of the bike. So I'll be attacking that part of the bike as aggressively as possible, whether I'm behind and having to chase leaders, or if I've got a little gap out the front with a couple of other guys, it'll be trying to accelerate away from the guys.
Well, Greg Bennett, you are behind at the moment, the defending champion, and Craig Walton, who has had a great record here in Sydney as he pushes up, still has the feet outside the pedals, and he's virtually now at the top of Macquarie Street. When will he decide that he's got enough pace up and make sure he has those feet inside his shoes?
I would imagine up at the Mitchell Library, just on top of the flat section there, going in towards the Supreme Court there. He'll be getting up out of the saddle and trying to get the momentum before you put him in, because you need speed. You don't want to go uphill and put them in, you lose your momentum, as he's joined now by Laurent Janson.
Well, he's had a good look around, Craig Walton, to make sure that the group is there. In fact, it's Chris Hill who has snuck up behind Craig Walton, and now finally, as you are spot on, Welshie, he puts his feet inside the shoes, which are already attached. Chris Hill sits up, puts on the sunglasses. So they've consolidated their position now, and they've got the opportunity to have a little bit of a look around. The cycle course here, as we've said in the women's race, 40 kilometres and 6 laps.
Yeah, it's a very challenging course, but by the look of it, to me, you've got the whole pack coming together. This will be an interesting bike section to watch, as we've got 40 or 50 guys going around these treacherous corners.
The conditions here are a little bit better than during the women's race. You can see that the conditions aren't as bad as they have been. The road is starting to dry out, and that will certainly help when we come around to some of these tight turns.
Yes, that's right. We've got the off-camber turn now at Lady Macquarie's chair here, and then we've got a short and sharp little upside of this. We've got 2 breakaway groups here. It's very interesting to see that, because I put that down to Craig Walton pushing the pace.
Well, this second pack, and there are a lot of athletes in that, and if this group joins up as one, then that will certainly make life very interesting. It may, in fact, come down to a run today. This is the lead pack as they go up the hill. Quite a sharp little hill, this one too. Possibly one of the opportunities, along with Macquarie Street, to make a break if you want to.
Yes, definitely. It's the sharpest little pinch on the bike course other than the long uphill of Macquarie Street, and it's definitely the place to go off the front if you want to maintain a little bit of a lead.
Well, the group has rejoined Craig Walton and Chris Hill, who had a brief lead, and Craig Watson, the New Zealander, is there. Well, Greg Bennett thought that the bike was most important, but Craig Walton thinks the race is won or lost on this leg.
I think the race will be won on the bike. I mean, if a pack forms on the bike, you know, it's going to come down to probably the fastest runner. But usually, you know, as history shows on this course, there's always been a breakaway pack on the bike. So I think it's very important to have a good swim and be up the front. And the bike, I think, is where the race is going to be won or lost.
Well, time will tell whether Craig Walton is correct today. The chase pack not too far away, but and there's an athlete down.
And Chris Gemmell from New Zealand.
Well, the rate, that's pretty dry there too. So Chris Gemmell, who is an up-and-coming youngster from New Zealand, had a good end of last year, end of 1999. He raced in the Australian Championships in Mooloolaba a couple of weeks ago, and that will be disappointing for him because really the road is starting to dry out. Let's have a look here. Just take us through this.
Yes, it was the front wheel, definitely the front wheel. He was in second place at the time and looking good too, but that's what happens when you just push that little bit too hard.
So Chris Gemmell, the Kiwi, will have to jump up and get back into the action. He finished 10th in that Australian title last week, so that's pretty good form coming into this race, or a fortnight ago I should say. That Australian Championship won by Miles Stewart, and as we know, Miles has pulled out of this race today. That's the situation at the moment. This chase pack is catching. Look at the length as they stretch out coming into this turn. I think that they will rejoin this lead pack, and we'll have a big bunch, possibly as many as 50 rolling around.
Yes, it's best to have a smaller group working off the front, but that lead one looks like it's about 40 or 50 strong, and as they go back into this right-hand turn into Macquarie Street, coming down Macquarie Street, you're going to hit in excess of 80 kilometres an hour. It's going to be a very, very tight turn with that amount of people on the course.
Yeah, I think they'll get a surprise, this lead group. There's plenty of torque there too as Craig Walton goes back towards the lead. And number 74, I think that might be, in fact it's 71, there's 36, I'll get 71 in a moment. 36 is Stefan Bignay, there's Hamish Carter, number 1, the Kiwi. 74 was Ricky Jorgensen, there's Chris Hill, so there's plenty of action here, and little spurts as athletes decide, well, I'm going to test this out. I'm a bit concerned about what's happening behind me.
Yes,
61.
we've got Ben Bright coming up from New Zealand. What they want to do here is roll over as a group like they do in cycle racing. It's called a pace line. They want to move over to the side, let them come through, draft on the wheel, get a little bit of rest, and then come through fresh. Laurent Genson pushing away from France in the lead.
Well, Shane Reid also there, number 10, number from the New Zealander. No sign of Craig Walton at the moment as we look at yet another leader, and that is number 52.
Peter Alder from Switzerland. That's right, as we see Hamish Carter come through, it looked like a little bit of a hurried look on his face. We haven't seen Craig Walton in a while. I'm a little worried about Craig Walton right now. 74 is Ricky Jorgensen, so plenty of action up front. And Shane Reid, the Kiwi, just settling in towards the rear of that pack as they come down towards the Sydney Opera House forecourt. You can see the size of that hill as they dip down. They really have to jump on the brakes as they get into the Opera House forecourt. Yes, and coming into these rough cobblestone areas, and we've just had word that Craig Walton has punctured He's got a flat tyre. What he's going to have to do, he's going to ride about 1 kilometre on the rim up to a wheel stop. He will then change the whole wheel. We've got 6 provided wheel stops here on this course, which is a great idea when using for the first time. He'll get one of those wheels and then rejoin the race.
Well, normally in this sort of situation, if you have a flat, you'd be out of the race. So that's wonderful news that we have got those wheel stops. And for Craig Walton, hopefully he'll be back on this pack. The chase pack, we'll see them come around in a moment. They're about 25 seconds down. Here they are now. And perhaps if we can see Craig Walton, it's pretty tough to pick out any of the athletes here as the lead group climb up Macquarie Street. Stefan Vignier at the back. Chris Hill is there. Hamish Carter. Also Shane Reed is there. Ricky Jorgensen. So a big pack leading that group at the moment. And they, I'm sure, Walshy will be trying as hard as they can to get away.
Yes, what's interesting is that the lead group are off the front now and they're establishing themselves way out in front of the other guys. Now, Craig Walton, if he's made a fast wheel stop, he'll get back in the pack, in the second pack, and that's the first chase group. Now, what Craig Walton will do is he's already expressed to us that he would like to go off the front. So if he can get back up to the front group and still have a dig at this race, I'd be very surprised, but there's one thing that can happen out of that too. He'll drag the rest of them back up to the front.
Well, there's plenty of class in this pack because Hamish Carter won the World Cup in Kona in the beginning of April, so he is in pretty good form at the moment. He's also won this Sydney race before. In fact, he's the only foreigner to win this Sydney race. He did so in '97. Other than that, Australians have won every year in the 5 that we've had so far. Greg Bennett in '99 and Greg Welsh. Wasn't a bad victory for him in 1998. They're having a look around and that chase pack are looming large in the just at the back of the screen there. They're having a good look around, these guys. I wouldn't be surprised, Greg, if that chase pack joins them up on the end of this lap.
Yes, that's right, and I can see a yellow helmet on the front there, and that's Craig Walton. This is unbelievable. Craig Walton has come from a long way down to regain the second pack and taking them right up to the first group.
Well, the Professor Chris Hill is in this pack. He's the leading Australian at the moment. Let's take a break. Back with more from the Energy Australia Triathlon right after this.
Of sport on C7 Sports Channel 12 AFL. Season 2.
The Energy Australia Triathlon 2000, wonderful scene from high above the city of Sydney, and we rejoin the action, and it looks as though the lead pack has now one giant massive cyclist, about 40 or 50, it's very hard to tell, but that is Ben Bright who is in front. Craig Walton recovered well from that flat tyre, he is there as well. Greg Bennett, Chris McCormick are in this pack. Big group of athletes, and Chris McCormick has done well to get back into this lead group.
Yes, he certainly has. I think he can congratulate and thank Craig Walton for puncturing today, for bringing him back up to the group. But it's interesting to see that this is Ralph Eggert right now from Germany going off the front. Maybe that nobody else wants to work right now, and this could be dangerous if Ralph sneaks away.
Well, we heard Greg Bennett talk about that Macquarie Street Hill, and Ralph Eggert, the German, has used it to his advantage, and there is somebody who's going with him now as they look around, and they have certainly increased the pace. In fact, we think it might be the fellow German Arne Schomburg. It is. So Schomburg and Eggert, you can see the urgency that these two athletes have.
Yes, I think this has been a planned move, a tactic been very well executed by the Germans. Today the Germans have come here for one reason only. They've come to get World Cup points, because right now I think they only have one spot in the Olympics. Now if they can get a couple of guys in the top 10 and get top points, they can go into 2 or 3 spots for the Olympic Games.
Well, the pressure is certainly on the chase pack now, because we've heard from Bennett and also Craig Walton that they think that the bike leg here is the key. Every year so far in Sydney, the race has been won on the bike with a breakaway. So can Schomburg and Eggert, the two Germans? Well, there doesn't appear to be all that much urgency there. There's Chris McCormack, he's in that pack. Let's have a look. Chris Hill going through there. There's Shane Reed. Also Andrew Johns in that pack as well. There's Shane Reed at the back of that pack. So he is there. A big group, and they don't look like they've got the urgency that they're going to chase. Conrad Stoltz also there, the South African Hunter Kemper. So a big group there, and Paul Amy, they don't appear to be all that in much of a hurry to chase these two Germans.
No, not in a hurry at all. I think that they're thinking about their running ability right now and let these two guys go off the front, towards the end of the bike ride, it may be hurting them a little bit too much with 2 guys as opposed to 50.
Well, they wouldn't want to let them get too far away. They are opening up a gap of quite considerable proportions at the moment. The 2 Germans, it's Schonberg and Eggert. They're pretty keen to have a look around and just make sure that that breakaway that we've spoken about so often here today, it could be the key to this race, and we may see now a lead that is developing that may be too much for the chasers to overhaul.
Yes, well that's right. Arne Schonberg and Ralph Eggert are working very well together here. This is a steep section here. They might find themselves about a minute or 30 seconds down, and then, you know, that might be enough for these 2 guys to get off to a good start on the run.
So we're hearing from the out on the course that they're about 20 seconds behind the chase pack, and Eggert it is who looks around, and well, I guess the good news for both of them that they'll certainly be able to converse with each other and determine what their tactics will be. The other advantage that they have is just the 2 of them. You can see the narrowness of the course here, and this is a particularly narrow part of the course. The big chase pack has to stretch out as they get to that College Street U-turn.
Yes, that's right. Right at that section, that's where Brad Bevan came off a couple of years ago as well. So it is a rough section too. We're going back to the main pack here. We've got Josh DePiece from the USA coming around, as does Courtney Atkinson.
Number 79 there is Lemire. In fact, this is the 3rd pack, so they've got a little bit of work to do as we go back to Schonberg, who is flying now down College Street. Have a look at the pace. Well, she said before, about 85 kilometres an hour, and I'd say that they're pretty close to that at the moment, Schonberg and also Ralph Eggert.
Yes, you probably noticed that the lead rider there has got a much higher cadence than the guy behind him. The guy behind will just be sitting in there getting his breath back so the leader can take all the wind. You can hear the wind in our effects microphone. It is quite windy out on the course. Craig Walton has broken away from the chase pack. He is chasing down the Germans. He's had a look over his shoulder. He's not getting any assistance. He's in no man's land now. Oh, Walton is absolutely relentless. He is going out there to win this race today. It's the only chance that he has at this Olympic selection. You have to win this race like the women. We've got Chris McCormack going after him. He's not letting him go because he knows how important it is too. Well, the interesting thing for Craig Walton is that he is not in the Australian team for the World Championships, so he must finish in the first 2 Australians. We still have 2 spots available in that World Championships team. Chris McCormack is there. Greg Bennett knows that he's going to the World Championships. So does Miles Stewart, but we've got 2 more athletes, 2 more spots. Craig Walton has said that if he doesn't make the World Championship team, he will probably retire from Olympic distance racing and concentrate on the long distance, the Ironman type racing. So there is a lot to work for Craig Walton, and look at that, he has rejoined that lead pack. In fact, he is now in front. So it's the 2 Germans and Craig Walton. Wonderful performance by the Australian. Unbelievable performance by Craig Walton right now. He's an aerobic animal. He is just getting after it. He's just putting in such a solid ride today as we go over the transition area and the artificial grass. So 55 seconds we think is the gap back to the chase pack. In fact, 25 seconds. You can see them coming in to view now as Walton, Schonberg and Eggert leave the transition area, and this big pack, probably around 40 athletes. Chris McCormack is in that pack, Courtney Atkinson there, Chris Hill there, the Australians, but so too is Hamish Carter, so there's plenty of talent in this chase pack. Yes, I saw Peter Robertson in there too, lurking in there. Oh, look, I'd love to see, there's Robbo in 2nd place. Look at him go, the diminutive figure of Peter Robertson. He's knee-high to a grasshopper, but boy, can he pack a mean punch on the run. Well, he's had a great first part of this bike leg, because he was a minute 35 down as they exited the swim. In fact, he was one of the tail enders in the swim, so he has gone from the 3rd pack to the 2nd pack, and he's pretty well placed, Peter Robertson. Look at the expression on the face of Craig Walton as he works hard up this Macquarie Street hill. Oh, he's hurting, but to give you some sort of indication of what Craig Walton just went through, coming off Supreme Court there, he was with the group at the bottom at the Opera House. He had bridged up to the leaders, which was a 25-second gap. Now that is just absolutely incredible. So 33 seconds there, they're lengthening the gap. It was 25 as they went through transition area, so they've added another 8 seconds now. They're working pretty effectively together too, and Craig Walton has done a lot of racing
around the world and a lot of racing in Germany, so I'm sure that he knows Eggert and Schonberg, and has had a bit of a discussion, said, come on fellas, we've got to work together, this is our chance.
Yeah, and I'm sure Arne Schonberg and Ralph Eggert know all the freckles on Craig Walton's back too.
Yeah, they're not too keen to get in the lead. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But Walton, he knows that this is the key part of the race, so I wouldn't imagine he would be too worried about being out in front. Although, as we know, you do have to save something in reserve for the run leg. You do need to ensure that you've got a little bit of petrol in the tank. They're off the seat. They're working hard as they go up this hill. Here's the chase pack, Paul Amy from New Zealand. I think that might be in the lead. Well, these blokes are just rolling around at the moment.
Yes, well, Paul Amy, I didn't expect him to see him there. He was walking around on Friday with a little bit of a shin splint device on his leg. He has a stress fracture in his right ankle there, and I'm surprised to see that he's still going.
Well, Greg Bennett is in that pack. You can see him there just behind Alexander Manzan. Well, wasn't he one of the stars early in the triathlon in 1985? In 1995, I should say, was one of the stars of the World Cup circuit. Good to see him back in business, the Brazilian. Here are our leaders. It's still Walton, followed by the two Germans, and the chase as well. They've picked up the pace a little bit. Paul Amy deciding perhaps that death or glory is the way to go for the New Zealander. Chris McCormack right on his wheel. Good position to be in for the Australian.
Yes, Hamish Carter as well. Peter Older we can see in there. But as we turn around to the Supreme Court, right-hand turn again into Macquarie Street, we've still got Arne Schonberg sitting on Craig Walton's wheel. I tell you what, these guys haven't come around and given Walto 1 ounce of help.
Yeah, no help whatsoever from the two Germans, but Craig Walton would come to expect that. He'd know that that is what he has to do. This is what he did in Tisavaris when he won his first World Cup title back in 1997. He pretty much had to do all the work himself, so he's not too scared about that, and it's up to the chase pack to do the work. Who's the best runner of these three if it comes down to a sprint, if they can get away?
Well, certainly Ralph Eggert. He's a bronze medalist in the 1994 World Championship when it was in Wellington, New Zealand. But Craig Walton, he's actually had some pretty good runs off hard bike rides, and that's what you have to do. After a hard bike ride, the transition into the running style is very, very, I'd say warped, because you just have to transfer the blood, you know, again, into the running muscles.
Well, Paul Amy, it still is who leads this chase pack. He's followed by McCormack. The gap pretty much the same, around 30 seconds, perhaps just a little bit over, but they're certainly within touch. But gee, the quality in this chase pack means that that lead group has to be very careful.
Yes, and as you notice, Paul Amy's legs there were going around at a fairly nice cadence, but Chris McCormack was pushing a big gear. That may pay in the run, not pay for Chris McCormack actually. That may be the worst thing. Yeah, certainly detrimental for him if he is pushing a big gear. These guys are flying, and hallelujah brother, says Craig Walton, because all of a sudden he has got the opportunity to sit in and have a little bit of a rest. They're coming into transition. You can see that Walton just taking the foot out of the shoe. Huge pack here. Chris Hill, number 8, just on the left-hand side. Chris McCormack, you can see that he is pushing such a big gear there. Perhaps a problem with the strategy. Big pack, huge pack here. It's going to be very interesting, this transition. There will be arms and legs and bikes flying. Yes, I don't think I'd like to be in that pack coming into the transition area, but anyway, they'll reach in excess of 80-85 kilometres coming down Macquarie Street there. Well, it'll be interesting to see the gap at the moment. It is around 30 seconds as the chase pack, the strategy here, get in and out of transition. It's the 4th event of triathlon to transition. It could be crucial for today's race. Yes, that's right, and the other shots we were getting with all the guys coming down Macquarie Street with their feet on top of the pedals. They've already got their feet out of the shoes, getting ready for the transition. It's very, very important that they get out fast, get the helmet off, put the shoes on, grab the hat or sunglasses, do whatever you have to do, but do it quick. Well, this is a part of the race that Craig Walton has worked on so very, very hard. It has been a weakness, but he has certainly improved over the last 12 months. So it is Walton and also Schonberg. Here's the chase pack. Chris Hill, number 8. Chris McCormack there. He's got number 4 on his vest. Let's have a look at their transition. Yes, well, as Chris Hill, the professor, wedges his front bike wheel in there and takes the helmet off, that was a perfect perfect testing time for those bike racks today.
Yeah, new transition system here, and it's working pretty well as Hamish Carter leads out Chris McCormack and Andrew John. So some good run form there. Chris Hill's had an excellent transition. Have a look at the stream of athletes pouring out of transition here. Well, if the winner comes from this group, then there are certainly some outstanding runners as Walton and also Schomburg break away, and I don't think that the gap is enough. It's about 30 seconds at the moment. So it's Walton who leads, 10 kilometres from the finish line. Don't go away, plenty more to come right after this. So just half an hour from deciding who will be the Sydney World Cup champion in 2000, and it's Craig Walton who still leads the way. And we look at the German, and that is Ralph Eggert. And here are the chasers. Well, Peter Robertson has had a fantastic bike leg. In fact, he was the 5th fastest man on the bike. He got off 38 seconds behind. He's charged through transition, and he's joined Chris McCormack leading the Australian charge. It's Peter Robertson on the left-hand side and Chris McCormack on the right-hand side. The results after the cycle leg: Craig Walton in the lead from Schomburg and Eggert, then Hill, Carter, McCormack, Johns, Keller, big group there, and the Australians Courtney Atkinson, Greg Bennett and Peter Robertson. In fact, 42 seconds down Peter Robertson. So he has had a fantastic transition, and he is now within striking distance. Well, here is a surprise. Walton has gone, he's dropped back. Robertson and also McCormack in pursuit now of the German, and that's Ralph Eggert.
Yes, Ralph Eggert, like I said before, he's the bronze medalist, and he's a great runner. No surprise to me to see him drop behind Schomburg and Craig Walton early on in the run.
Well, big surprise here that Chris McCormack and also Peter Robertson is in fantastic touch here, and well, wouldn't you love to see Chris McCormack win? We saw before the race him talk briefly about his mother Terry, who had passed away about a year ago. It's almost a year to the day. He didn't race last year because of that. He's had a shocking run of luck here at the Sydney course. He was 7th in 96, he crashed in 97 and 98. He didn't race last year, and he has got a wonderful opportunity here today. But Peter Robertson, have a look at him charge down that little decline there, and now he is going to race alongside Ralph Eggert. And Peter Robertson, who we really don't know all that much about, we know that he finished 7th in the Australian title 2 weeks ago. He's in the lead.
Yes, well, 2 weeks ago he ran 30 seconds faster than Chris McCormack and Miles Stewart, but look at him, he's jockey-sized and he's just rearranging himself all over the place. Look, you might want to look at his hands. He's got the Robbo sticks going. Look, Arne Schomburg ran out with those, but we call them Robbo sticks. Robbo holds onto these sticks for his rhythm, and it gives him something to feel as he's going along for the run.
Well, at the moment, he has got a little bit under 9 kilometres remaining. That is a long, long way to go. Has he gone too early?
Yes, he may have gone too early, but Robbo is known for his blistering run leg splits, and he's going out there today. He was lucky to get into this race. He won the Oceania Games back on January 3rd in New Zealand. Look, they said to Robbo, you need to go and win, and we'll give you a spot in the Sydney World Cup.
Well, he's come from a long way when you consider that he went to that Oceania Championship in New Zealand on a prayer. He hoped that he would perform well enough to get in this field, and now he is in the lead, and he's running pretty strongly at the moment. Eggert and McCormack behind him. Hamish Carter is in that chase pack as well. Also, Vladimir Polokopenko, the Ukrainian, is in that group. A couple of Germans there, so there are plenty of talented runners in that chase pack. Chris Hill still there, but Peter Robertson, got to say at the moment, Greg, that he looks pretty comfortable.
He looks comfortable, but he's got the awkward style. He usually throws his head from side to side, but hey, don't worry about that. That's his style, and he certainly does know how to run. He's a dominant runner.
Plenty of support there too in Mrs. Macquarie's chair as they run back up towards the art gallery and then back down through the city. There's Chris Hill. He is in that pack along with number 29, and that is Olivier Massot from France, and number 14, who is there, also Jamie Hunt, the New Zealander. He's got pretty good run form. Chris McCormack is in there, so when you consider the talent in that group, Peter Robertson has got a very, very talented bunch of athletes behind him.
Yes, and I thought they looked like they were going fast. Look, Robbo is cleared out. Look, he's got one thing on his mind, and that's to come across this finish line in first place. Last year, Robbo ran out of money. He couldn't even pay his car registration anymore, and some people even said he was so poor he couldn't even pay attention.
Well, that's one heck of a line, Welshie. I've got to give it to you. He drives the old EH. He's looking at his supporters on the side. How far ahead am I? Do I have enough gap? He's had a bit of a smile. Now he's got the grimace. He's got 1,000,001 expressions on the face. And here are the chase pack. And we can see there that Chris Hill is still there. And Chris McCormack, can we see him? Yes, he is. He's just behind Livio Marceau, so he is still there. Jamie Hunt is also there. Craig Watson, the New Zealander, number 61 on the left-hand side. That is Ben Bright. So as we look closely at Chris Hill, Jamie Hunt, a little bit of strength. Best seat in the house there on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge as they watch this drama unfold.
Yes, I'll say up there on the old coat hanger, what a great sight. But look, Peter Robertson coming down for the first of 2 laps here. He's just going to be looking across at the crowd, may even blink over his right shoulder to see the big screen to see how far of a lead that he really does have, but I don't think he will.
Well, he's got a big lead here, and this is a huge surprise, and the expression on his face hasn't changed all that much. He's still got the sticks in his hands. The cadence, the pace has really picked up. Try harder on the scoreboard in the background, and 1 lap to go. He's lost the number. He picks one up now. He tries to tuck it in. He is flying, Peter Robertson. The boost that he will receive as he's gone through that transition area must be the feeling that only you can get when you're leading in front of your home crowd. Stefan Vukovic, the German, in second place at the moment.
Oh, Stefan Vukovic, he's come from nowhere. He's come from absolutely the back of the pack, and he's ran right through the field. That just tells me that the rest of the runners in that pack did go out a little bit too hard. Is it too much for Peter Robertson? Only time will tell.
Interestingly, Chris McCormack is struggling. He's dropping off at the back of this pack, so it's Vukovic. Chris Hill is still there. Then we go back to Eric van der Linden, the Dutchman, the tall figure of van der Linden, number 28. He's come through from the back of this pack as well, so some surprises here. Haven't seen too much of these guys. They've maintained their form on the bike. They really haven't done all that much. They're leaving it to the run.
Yes, that's right. They've been smart. They've sat back in the pack and just waited for the run to come along. But Robbo here, as we get a great look at the Sydney skyline, goes into this little 40-metre pinch, and then you go down into the Boy Charlton pool area, and I'll tell you what, he'll be looking over his shoulder because I think he's cleared out.
Well, he's got a big lead at the moment. Vukovic is an interesting athlete. He lost his hair as a 17-year-old, as a teenager. His hair started to fall out. He's only got one eyebrow, and he was asked before the race what happened to the other eyebrow. He said it simply disappeared. It fell out. He trains with Thomas Springsteen, who is the coach of Grit Breuer, who is the famous 400-metre athlete for Germany, so his run is obviously one of the strengths. Have a look at this lead here. Peter Robertson, the lone figure, out by himself. What a shock this would be if Robbo can get up.
Yes, an absolute dark horse in this race. I gave him the dark horse because I know that he's a great runner, but Chris Hill, he seems to be fading a little bit here. He may have gone out a little bit too hard.
Well, we saw Chris Hill just behind Stefan Vukovic, but now no Chris Hill, so that's problems for the Australian. We hope that he is still okay. Peter Robertson, well, the 25-year-old, he's originally from Victoria. He's moved to Sydney to chase his Olympic dream. Oh, he's lost the number. He's gone back to get it. Well, he has got that much of a gap that he can celebrate already.
Yes, he's got a large gap, and he's got the smile on his face. Look at that smile. It's as wide as the Sydney Harbour Bridge itself.
Well, unbelievable story here for Peter Robertson. He was ranked, as he came into this race, as he looks around, he knows that he's got it won. He was ranked 112th in the world. He's only ever had one World Cup start. He's got the opportunity to give the thumbs up. Only ever had one World Cup start, and that was in Cancun last year, where he finished 52nd. An unbelievable story. Rag to riches.
Oh, rags to riches, all right. This is going to be the biggest day of Peter Robertson's career, and it will springboard him right into the Olympic arena in September. Vukovic here coming down the hill. He's got the weight of all of Germany on his shoulders as we see Vladimir Polopienko in the background from Ukraine.
Well, Peter Robertson, he came into this race as the 14th best Australian. He's got the opportunity for the next few minutes, or the next few seconds at least, he's not too far away from the finish line, to celebrate what will be the greatest victory of his career. It's certainly one of the biggest shocks in Australian triathlon history. And Peter Robertson, there's the fan club. They've got the Go Robbo shirts on. The men and women in the yellow shirts. He's running backwards in the home straight. Peter Robertson, he's gone from pauper to prince in the space of the last 2 hours. He wins the Sydney World Cup. He wins the greatest prize in Australian triathlon because he is in the Australian Olympic team. What a victory for Peter Robertson.
An amazing day for Peter Robertson there as he leaps to victory in Greg Welch style. Good on you, Robbo. That's for you, mate.
It was indeed. He mimicked the little legend himself, and that's the man sitting next to me. Perhaps we have a new one now. Greg Welch, you can't be out there, but Peter Robertson has done what you would hope to do. As Stefan Vukovic celebrates in the most magnificent of fashion. He gets silver for Germany, and Vladimir Polikarpenko, the Ukrainian, will celebrate with the bronze medal. But Peter Robertson, well, how are you feeling? Because you would have loved to have been out there, but I'm sure you celebrate with Robbo.
Look, nobody gave Robbo a glimmer of hope here today, and look, Robbo has gone out there and shown Australia, but shown all the other competitors as well, he can win that gold medal. That was a dominant performance by Peter Robertson. Not many people can run as good as that, as Sean Welch gives him a hug as he goes back through to celebrate with the crowd as we see Jamie Hunt from New Zealand come on in.
Well, Peter Robertson, we may not have known too much about you before now, but we know a lot about you now after that one magnificent performance.
Yeah, I can't believe this. It's an absolute dream. That crowd was awesome today. They just lifted me to another level. Thank you all.
Peter, we've known about your run. You had the fastest run time in Mooloolaba. You must have been feeling supremely confident once you got off the bike.
No. It's one of the best fields ever here, and I knew there was a lot of good runners there. I had to be at my very best today, and with me and my coaches, been working towards this one day, and it's all paid off now.
You've come from a long way, because if it wasn't for your performance at the Oceania Championships in January, you wouldn't have even been in this field today.
No, I had to win there. I did that, and I've won here again today, and now I'm off to the Olympics.
Pretty amazing, hey?
Sure is.
Now, they tell me that you bear a remarkable resemblance to the little legend Greg Welch, and you rang him a couple of times during the week for a bit of advice. What did he say to you?
Just go for it. You know, we're of the same mould, and this one's for you, Welshie.
Now, what about the fan club here? They're in big numbers. They've got the yellow shirts on. What sort of support did they give you as you went past for that final 5K on the run?
I'm so lucky. I would support the whole 5K loop, and they're awesome out there. And I'm really proud to have all the people cheering for me today.
Well, Peter, you've given us a lot of enjoyment today, and you're off to the Olympic Games. Congratulations on a wonderful effort.
Thank you.
Confirmation of results. Peter Robertson from Australia. Well, who would have believed that as we started this race? He wins the gold medal. Stefan Vukovic from Germany gets the silver, and Vladimir Polikarpenko from the Ukraine gets the bronze. As we look at the Australians, Courtney Atkinson, the second Australian, in 14th place. Chris McCormack hung on well in 20th. Craig Walton, 34, and Hill, Bennett and Miles Stewart did not finish. Well, what a day it's